Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar and workshop series conducted by TCS in lieu of the upcoming OCS exams happening in August 2026. My name is Nick and I'm the lead tutor and evaluator for OCS at TCS. So let's look at the session outcomes. Today's session is going to be a bit long because I have a lot to cover. So first things first, I'm going to share some insights about common mistakes committed by students which leads to a failure. So I will be explaining what these mistakes are, and I will also be suggesting what you need to do to overcome each of these mistakes or issues when conducting your preparations focused on the upcoming OCS exam, because I know for a fact that some of you who are joining us unfortunately did not clear the OCS exam. So focused on you, I will be sharing these thoughts. And secondly, I will be sharing a 6-week study plan with you. As you know, in our first webinar, we did share an 8-week study plan. And if you were waiting until the results to start preparations, then you have 6 weeks until your exam. So I will be highlighting what you need to do in the upcoming 6 weeks. And most importantly, I will be teaching you answering and time management techniques. So it's essential that you learn these two techniques and take steps to practice these two techniques whenever you are attempting a mock exam in order to make sure that you never run out of time, you structure your answers properly. If that is the case, you will easily pass this examination. And also, to teach you how to implement these two techniques in the most practical manner, I will be conducting a masterclass, thereby directing your attention towards a question tied to linear programming. All right, so before we get into the technicalities, let me quickly remind you of the upcoming webinars and workshops we have scheduled for you. So the fourth webinar is happening next Saturday at 16 GMT or 5 p.m. UK, in which I'm going to teach you stress management techniques because the examiner, as you know, the examiner purposely creates a stressful situation to see whether you are well poised to manage a stressful situation. So that's why it's essential that you learn stress management techniques and take steps to practice stress management techniques whenever you are attempting mock exams. And at the same webinar, I'm going to take you through examiners' comments because it's wise to listen to the Cima examiner to identify what you are supposed to do when conducting your preparations and during your real exam. And once we are done with the webinar series, we are kickstarting our workshop and masterclass series focused on each of your F1, P1, and E1 pillars. And similar to what you'd encounter in today's webinar, I will be conducting a masterclass focused on each syllabus area or each pillar rather. And in the final workshop, which happens just 2 or 3 days before your examination, I will be sharing last minute tips with you to make sure that you are walking into the exam with a high level of positivity and open-mindedness. Because as per the Cima examiner, if you are confident before the exam, you are going to be confident during your exam. If so, you will easily pass this examination. So I urge you to attend each of these weekly webinars and workshops, which are conducted free of charge, which is the best way to learn technicalities behind your exam. And at the same time, if you have any questions, you can get in touch with me each week via each of these webinars and workshops. All right, so having said that, let's try to figure out the common causes which leads to a failure. So as I told you earlier, some of you are joining us after, unfortunately failing the OCS exams, which were held in May 2026. So if you are one such individual, please take a piece of paper and jot down any of these issues which you encountered when conducting your preparations. And by doing so, you will gain a clear understanding of what went wrong, and you will also know what to do to avoid each of these mistakes, because if you committed any of these mistakes, definitely you will end up failing in August as well. So the biggest problem out there is the fact that students think that they can attempt just 2 or 3 mock exams and pass this examination. So as you know, your entire syllabus is divided into 80 syllabus areas. Okay, so before walking into the exam, you need to get accustomed to how each of these 80 conceptual elements can be tested, because any of these 80 syllabus areas can be tested at your exam. So you cannot cover all 80 syllabus areas within just 2 or 3 mock exams. That is why the examiner has a tendency to develop 6 different papers or 6 different variants focused on a pre-scene. Why 6 variants? With the intention of covering all 80 syllabus areas. So as you know, your syllabus changed in May 2026. Some add-ons were brought in, which consist of syllabus areas such as sustainability, quality costing, as well as environmental costing and whatnot. So with all these add-ons, your syllabus is divided into 80 main syllabus areas. So before walking into the exam, you need to get accustomed to these 80 syllabus areas. If not, you are going to struggle during your exam. So if you ended up failing last time, probably you struggled with 1 or 2 subtasks. Probably you were clueless of what the question was, what the answers should look like. This is primarily given the fact that you attempted just 2 or 3 mock exams. When you are doing so, you are partially prepared to face the examination. And when this is the case, you are going to struggle during the exam. And when you struggle during the exam, you are definitely going to repeat this examination. So the solution to overcome this issue is to make your mind to attempt 7 mock exams this time, which includes the new add-ons which were brought in to the syllabus in May 2026. If you take steps to attempt 7 mock exams and conduct your revision focused on the same 7 mock exams, you can rest assured that you will know how to approach each conceptual element on the day of your exam. If not, you are going to struggle whenever you see a question which you are seeing for the first time in your life. So if you attempted just 2 or 3 mocks last time, definitely you would have ended up failing. So in order to avoid this issue, you need to make up your mind to attempt 7 mock exams this time to cover all 80 syllabus areas. And also, I had a chat with most of you who ended up failing. I said that via the WhatsApp group, I dropped a message and said that I'm ready to get on a call with you. And I got in touch with 20 odd individuals. Almost everyone was saying this. They said that right after attempting a mock exam, they were reading through the questions and suggested answers. This is something good to do, but the problem is when you read something, you will remember what you read for 1 or 2 days, but beyond that point, you will not remember all the points which appeared within a typical suggested answer. So this is not how you should revise. You need to, rather than simply reading something, you need to take a step further and ensure that you redevelop answer plans focused on suggested answers. So in a little while, when I'm teaching you answering and time management techniques, you will understand what an answer plan looks like. So for now, I'm going to direct your attention towards a typical answer plan. So most students, what they do is after attempting a mock exam, they will read through the questions and suggested answers. And as you can see, the suggested answers are in paragraph form and they are extremely lengthy. So when this is the case, when you read through something, you might feel that you have actually learned something. But the problem is you cannot remember the exact points on the day of your exam. So in order to ensure that you remember the exact points, you need to gain access to the summarized version of each answer plan. Then you will clearly see how many points you should include concerning each conceptual element. You can clearly see the logic behind each answer, how the answer should be structured, how each conceptual element should be approached. When this is the case, when you have access to these type of summaries, it helps you memorize the same answer points. If you do so, you are in a position to remember the exact same points on the day of your exam. If you remember the exact points, you are going to get full marks at your exam. So as I mentioned earlier, most students think that they will remember everything simply by reading through questions and suggested answers. This is not going to help you. Instead, you need to rely on answer plans, especially if you're coming through an exemption route or if you ended up failing the exam previously. And also, there are another set of students who think that, okay, I'm going to attempt, even after having access to all 7 mock exams, students think that, okay, I will attempt just 2 or 3 mocks under exam conditions, and I will read through, concerning the remaining mock exams, I will simply read through the questions and answers. As I mentioned earlier, just because you read something, you are not going to have an in-depth understanding of the exact points which you need to highlight in your answer concerning each of the 80 syllabus areas. That is why you need to spend a considerable amount of time towards revision. And the easiest way to revise is when you have access to answer plans. So that's the second problem. So in order to overcome this problem, do not rely on just reading questions and suggested answers. Instead, you need to take steps to attempt mock exams under exam conditions. And when conducting revision, read through the answer plans. Once you have read through the answer plans, take steps to redevelop answer plans on your own. Because rather than reading, when you type something or when you write something on your own, it goes to your head better. And this leads to a situation where you are cementing your knowledge. When you have cemented your knowledge, you will remember how to approach each of the 80 conceptual elements on the day of your exam. And another problem is the fact that students are clueless of an appropriate answering technique. And when students are clueless of an answering technique, they are clueless of a time management technique as well. So both these elements will be taught in today's webinar. So since you are part and parcel of this webinar, you need not worry about this issue anymore. But those who are not too conversant with an answering and time management technique, as I mentioned earlier, end up wasting a lot of time during the exam. And most students, what they do is, right after reading through the scenario, they start typing their fully fledged answer or final answer in paragraph form without spending some time to plan or think. Because as I've mentioned earlier, the examiner tries to replicate a real life corporate environment during the exam. So in a real life corporate environment, if you receive a complex email, you will spend some time to plan out your answer, structure your response to ensure that you have covered everything which was highlighted within the email which you received. You will make sure to cover the requirement clearly. But at the exam, rather than spending some time to plan, when you jump the gun and try to start typing your fully fledged answer, halfway through, you might realize that you are headed in the wrong direction. When this is the case, you will end up deleting the entire answer, and you will have to type your answer from scratch. When this happens, you know for a fact that you have spent a lot of time unnecessarily. You have wasted a lot of time. When this is the case, you will panic. When you panic, you will develop half-hearted answers or answers which are not well thought out. When this is the case, you will end up scoring low marks during the exam. So that is why you need to learn the answering and time management techniques, which I'm going to teach you in a little while. And at the same time, just learning these two techniques won't help. You need to take steps to practice these two techniques whenever you are attempting mock exams. Just because you learn these two techniques, you are not in a position to implement them for the first time at your exam. Instead, you need to practice them. If you practice these two techniques when attempting mock exams, you can rest assured that you will structure or you will develop well-structured answers at your exam. You will manage your time appropriately. When you tackle these two elements, you need not worry about scoring good marks at your OCS exam. So if you were clueless of an appropriate answering and time management technique, learn these two techniques today. And after doing so, whenever you are attempting mock exams, keep replicating or repeating these two techniques over and over, so that by the time you are walking into the exam, you would master or champion these two techniques, which will ensure that you'd easily pass this exam. And another problem is tied to the fact that when it comes to mock attempts, students do not attempt mocks under simulated exam conditions. So at the exam, you have to sit in one place across 3 hours and attempt 4 sections, one after the other, without breaks between sections. But when attempting mock exams, what I've encountered is the fact that students attempt each mock exam on a section by section basis with breaks in between. So most students, what they do is, let's assume a student is attempting mock number 1. As you know, each mock exam should be divided into 4 different sections. So students have a tendency to attempt the first section today, the second section tomorrow, the third section day after tomorrow, and likewise, whereas at the exam, you have to attempt the 4 sections one after the other. within 3 hours without breaks in between sections. So it's essential that you practice mocks under exam conditions. When you do so, you are getting accustomed to the type of stresses you'd encounter due to fatigue setting in. Because take it from me, it is not easy to sit in one place across 3 hours and keep doing the same thing over and over again. It is an extremely stressful situation, especially towards the final two sections, sections 3 and 4. You will experience fatigue. Fatigue leads to brain freeze. Brain freeze leads to a situation where you are supposed to think, but nothing comes to your head. Because of that, you'd panic. When you panic, you will give up the fight halfway through. So hordes of students experience this during their exam, given the fact that they are not accustomed to an exam setting because they have not attempted mocks under exam conditions. So at TCS, we have developed the exact replica of the Pearson VUE system. So you have the opportunity of attempting all mocks under exam conditions. So make use of this opportunity, because when you attempt mocks under exam conditions, you can master your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. I said that I'm going to teach you answering and time management techniques at today's webinar. Next week, I'm going to teach you stress management techniques as well. So whenever you are attempting mock exams, keep practicing these three techniques, answering, time management, and stress management. If you do so, then by the time you are walking into the exam, you will know how to manage stressful situations, how to manage your time appropriately, and you will know how to structure your answers so that you stand a chance to gain the most amount of marks at your exam. So if you did not practice all mocks under exam conditions, make up your mind to at least attempt 5 mocks under exam conditions with the prime intention of practicing your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. And also another issue faced mainly by those who are coming through the exemption route is the fact that they lack a clear understanding of the theoretical concepts covered within the P1 and F1 syllabi. And when you do not know your theory, you cannot score marks, because if you look at the operational case study exam, this is a highly technical examination which is intended to mostly test your theory knowledge. I highlighted these things in the first webinar as well. So this is a theory heavy paper. When this is the case, when you have knowledge gaps concerning P1 and F1 theoretical concepts, you are going to struggle during the exam. And just because you know your theory, you cannot pass. Instead, you need to take steps to improve your application skills, because you are supposed to, when developing answers, you are supposed to utilize the knowledge which you have gained via your P1 and F1 syllabi mostly, because E1 is not actually tested at this exam. That's why I'm only talking about P1 and F1. So at the exam, when developing answers, you are supposed to utilize the knowledge which you have gained via P1 and F1 syllabi and apply it considering the scenario presented at your examination. So if you're clueless of application, if you're clueless of certain conceptual elements, if you skip certain conceptual elements when conducting your preparations, then you are definitely going to struggle at your exam. As I mentioned earlier, your syllabus is divided into 80 main areas. So you need to gain an in-depth understanding of each of the 80 syllabus areas. If you skip any of them when conducting your preparations, you are definitely going to suffer. Because, when reaching out to you guys via a call yesterday as well as day before yesterday, one of you said that you saw a question to do with cost volume profit analysis or CVP or multi-product break-even analysis. But you said that when you were going through your FLP resources, when you were doing your competency exams, you did see a set of videos as well as reading material tied to CVP analysis, but you didn't see such a question when attempting mock exams. However, unfortunately, at your exam, you saw a question which was tied to CVP analysis, and you were clueless of how to approach such a question. So this happens when you skip syllabus areas when conducting your preparations. So that is why I said that you should not walk into the exam by attempting just 2 or 3 mock exams. If you do so, you will be definitely skipping certain syllabus areas. When you skip syllabus areas, if it is tested, these areas which you skipped, if these areas are tested at the exam, you are definitely going to struggle. When you struggle, it leads to extreme levels of stress, extreme levels of stress leads to brain freeze. Okay, so in order to avoid all these things, you need to learn all theoretical concepts. You need to improve your application skills. That is why we are sharing answer plans with you, because when you read through our answer plans, you will clearly understand how to approach each of the 80 conceptual elements. You will easily understand how to deal with application, thereby coming up with practical answers. And I also urge you guys to revise by redeveloping answer plans. And when you take steps to redevelop answer plans, you are further refining your theory knowledge as well as application capabilities. So if you lack theory knowledge and application, you need to base your preparations focused on the 7 mock exams. And at the same time, you need to keep practicing the answering technique whenever you are attempting mock exams. And when revising, take steps to try and redevelop answer plans on your own. Keep redeveloping answer plans until you are satisfied about the fact that you are capable of replicating TCS's answer plans on your own. If so, you need not worry about having knowledge gaps. You need not worry about application. You can, nail these areas successfully on the day of your exam. And sometimes students focus on theory too much, especially those who are coming through exemptions. So students think that, okay, in order to qualify for the OCS exam, I need to complete some competency exams. And once you complete the competency exams, most students think that, okay, I've learned my theory, so the OCS exam is going to be a walk in the park, which is never going to be the case. As you know, via these competency exams, you will gain somewhat of an idea of the conceptual elements tested at the exam, but you need to get a deeper understanding of each theoretical concept in order to score good marks at your exam. So you cannot really rely on FLP resources solely if you want to pass this exam. That is why we are sharing 7 mock exams with you. That is why we are sharing the suggested answers as well as the answer plans of each of these mock exams, so that you will clearly see which conceptual elements are tested. When you read through the answer plans, you will learn theory easily in an in-depth manner. And at the same time, when you take steps to revise by redeveloping answer plans on your own, you are cementing your understanding about each of the 80 conceptual elements, as well as you are practicing your application skills. Okay, so if you are focusing too much on FLP resources, you should not commit the same mistake this time. Instead, you need to conduct your preparations based on pre-scene specific and exam standard mock exams, which are intended to cover all 80 syllabus areas. And some of you who end up failing the exam rely on past exam variants or past papers. So we at TCS, we do not recommend students to rely on past exam variants or past papers, given the fact that these past papers or past exam variants are based on a totally different pre-scene. So the internals and externals, as well as what appears within the financial statements of a previous pre-scene, is quite different to your current pre-scene, which is based on SoPa. For instance, if you look at the costing system utilized by SoPa, it is totally different to some other manufacturing firm, which was highlighted in a previous pre-scene. So if you rely on past exam variants or questions and answers which are based on a totally different pre-scene, you are not in a position to gain a clear understanding of the logic behind each answer highlighted within each suggested answer, unless and otherwise you have a deep understanding of a previous pre-scene. So when you have just 6 weeks at your disposal to conduct preparations, you do not have time to master a totally different pre-scene, as well as go through mock exams and try to figure out the logic behind each answer, which is aligned with a totally different pre-scene. So that is why, in order to save a lot of time and in order to increase your productivity when conducting your preparations in the upcoming 6 weeks, that is why we are suggesting that you rely on pre-scene specific mock exams rather than relying on past exam variants or past papers which are based on a different pre-scene. Also, most students end up failing due to a lack of revision. So as I mentioned earlier, students have a tendency to attempt just 2 or 3 mock exams. After attempting just 2 or 3 mock exams, students simply read through the suggested answers. Sometimes students compare their own answers to the suggested answers, which is good to do, but you need to take a step further and try to develop answer plans on your own. This is the only way to cement your understanding. I mentioned the same points earlier as well, because just because you read something, you are not going to have gain a foolproof understanding about each conceptual element. You will not remember all the points which appears within the answer just because you read through suggested answers. Instead, it is better to have access to the summarized versions of suggested answers, which are answer plans. And after you read through answer plans, you need to take steps to develop answer plans on your own. That is the only way to cement your understanding or solidify your knowledge, which will ensure that you will remember everything on the day of the exam. And most students do not adhere to a study plan. That is why 90% of the students out there start their preparations just 2 weeks before the exam. You will have, when you start preparations just 2 or 3 weeks before the exam, you will have enough time to attempt all mock exams. But the problem is you won't have time to revise. And as per our study technique, which we promote at TCS, the most important element is to revise by developing answer plans on your own. So when you skip this process, you are going to suffer during the exam. So that is why you need to stick to a study plan. That is why we are sharing a 6-week study plan with you in a little while. And when you are encountering any of these problems, it leads to a lack of confidence. That's why most of you who ended up failing might have felt extremely anxious before the exam. Some of you might have skipped sleep as well. So, and some of you might have felt extremely stressed before the exam. This happens when you know for a fact that you are ill prepared. So you have 6 weeks until your exam, which is enough and more time to conduct your preparations. Because if you look at pre-scene, if a new pre-scene is released by the Cima examiner, the time between the pre-scene release until the exam is just 6 weeks. So which indicates the fact that the examiner intends you to prepare for OCS within just 6 weeks. So you have 6 weeks at your disposal until your exam. So within these 6 weeks, stick to the study plan and make sure to master each of the 7 mock exams. When it comes to mastering each mock exam, you are supposed to stick to a 3-step approach, which I'm going to explain in a little while. So stick to the 3-step approach with the intention of mastering each of the 7 mock exams. If so, you will know for a fact that you have gained an in-depth understanding of the 80 conceptual elements. You have taken steps to practice answering time management and stress management techniques under exam conditions. You have taken steps to revise by redeveloping answer plans. This will ensure that you remember everything on the day of your exam. When this is the case, you will walk into the exam with a high level of confidence. Okay, so these are the common reasons which leads to a failure. I asked you to jot any of the issues which you encountered previously out of this list, and I hope you did so. And now you know, hopefully, as to how to avoid any of these pitfalls when conducting your preparations focused on August 2026 OCS exams. All right. And in order to rebound from your past mistakes, you need to conduct a personal reflection. And when conducting this personal reflection, be honest to yourself and question as to whether you gave your best shot or not. So when you are questioning yourself, try to understand the type of issues you encountered out of this list. If you encountered any of these issues, now you know why you failed in the previous sitting, and also you know what to do to avoid a failure in your next sitting. So you need to diagnose the reasons and address them this time, because if you keep repeating the same mistakes, if you keep sticking to the same preparatory process or strategy, you are going to get similar marks in your next sitting. Those of you who are part and parcel of this webinar, who has ended up repeating this exam twice or more, you know what I'm talking about. You keep getting the same amount of marks over and over. Why is this the case? Because you keep repeating the same mistakes. So before you start preparations focused on OCS exams happening in August, you need to conduct a personal reflection. You need to figure out what your shortcomings were and take steps to avoid these shortcomings when preparing for August. And the action plan should be to work smarter than the previous attempt. I'm not asking you to work harder. Instead, I'm asking you to work smarter, which is to simply stick to the study plan, which I'm going to share with you in a little while. Okay, so if you failed previously, now you know what your shortcomings were. And when conducting your preparations, take steps to avoid each of these shortcomings, thereby changing your preparatory process. And I'm going to direct your attention towards the 6-week study plan. As I mentioned earlier, we at TCS, we have devised a system in which you are supposed to master each mock exam by sticking to a 3-step approach. So step number 1 is to practice. And when when you're practicing each mock exam, practice each mock under exam conditions. The objective is not to learn something, but to practice your answering, time management, and stress management techniques under an exam situation. So once you have practiced these 3 techniques, then focus on step number 2, in which you are supposed to learn about how to approach each of the conceptual elements which were covered in a mock exam which you attempted. So you can easily learn by reading through the answer plans or the summarized versions of each suggested answer. When you read through answer plans, you will clearly see how to approach each conceptual element, how to logically structure your answer, as well as the number of answer points you need to include within your answers. And if you replicate the same answer points at your real exam, you will get full marks easily. So that's step number 2, in which you are supposed to learn. After you have learned, your preparations should not stop there. You need to take the 3rd step as well, which is to revise. And the most ideal and the most effective way to revise is to redevelop answer plans on your own. As I mentioned earlier, after you have read through the answer plans, try to develop these answer plans on your own. And once you have developed your fresh answer plans, compare them to TCS's. Then you will figure out whether you have remembered all the points or whether you are missing out on certain points. If you are missing out, develop the answer plan once more. So keep doing this process over and over until you are satisfied about the fact that you are capable of replicating TCS's answer plans on your own without missing out on any of the points. If that is the case, rest assured that you will remember each of these points on the day of your exam, because you have not just read through answer plans. Instead, we have taken a step further and also made sure to redevelop answer plans on your own. So stick to this 3-step process with the intention of mastering each of the 7 mock exams. And within these 7 mock exams, we have included 80 subtasks in total, covering all 80 syllabus areas which can be tested. So when you stick to this process, you are not just learning something, you are practicing your knowledge by developing answer plans. And at the same time, you are fine-tuning your technical capabilities, which is tied to fine-tuning answering, time management, and stress management techniques. So attempt a mock under exam conditions, practice what you are going to learn today as well as at next week's webinar. And whenever you are attempting a mock exam, practice these 3 technical elements: answering, time management, and stress management, and then focus on learning. When it comes to practicing mock exams, I don't want you guys to come up with the best type of answers. You will struggle, you will be stressed, you will run out of time. I want you to encounter all these problems when attempting mock exams, rather than facing them for the first time at your real examination. So that's the objective of the first step, which is to practice each mock under exam conditions, and then focus on learning by reading through answer plans. After you have learned your theory and application, practice your knowledge by redeveloping answer plans on your own, thereby cementing or solidifying your knowledge. If you stick to this process, you will remember how to approach each of the 80 syllabus areas in the most successful manner on the day of your exam. And sticking to this logic, we have developed this 6-week study plan, which I will be sharing after this session via the WhatsApp group. So week number 1 is dedicated towards understanding the pre-scene simply by watching the pre-scene analysis videos. Once you have gained an in-depth understanding of the pre-scene, then focus your attention towards mastering mock number 1 by sticking to the 3-step approach, which I highlighted a while back. So attempt mock number 1 via the exam platform. The objective is not to come up with foolproof answers. You will have knowledge gaps. That's totally fine. The objective is to simply practice your answering, time management, and stress management techniques under exam conditions. After you have practiced these 3 techniques, read the answer plans to learn how to deal with theory and application, and solidify your knowledge by redeveloping answer plans focused on mock number 1. And similarly, in week number 2, take steps to master mocks 2 and 3, and in week number 3, mocks 4 and 5, and in week number 4, focus your attention towards mastering mock 6, and in week number 6, master mock number 7. If you stick to this process in the exam week, when all the other students are scrambling for time, when they're trying to do everything under the sun, you are only focusing your attention towards revision, which is to read the answer plans from mocks 1 to 7 and stop work a day or 2 prior to the exam, because it is best to rest. Once you have done all the hard yards, it's best to rest a day or 2 before the exam, because then you walk into the exam with a high level of confidence and open-mindedness. So I hope you will stick to this 6-week strategy. If you do so, you can rest assured that you are conversant with each of the 80 syllabus areas. You know how to structure your answers because you have practiced it. You know how to deal with application because you have practiced the answering technique. And when this is the case, you will score extremely good marks on the day of your exam. Okay, so that's the 6-week study plan. And having said that, I'm going to teach you crucial answering and time management techniques. So when it comes to planning out your answers, you need to stick to this 5-step approach. So step number 1 is to read the scenario by dedicating 5 to 7 minutes of your time. But if you're taking more than 7 minutes to read through a scenario, then it appears that your reading speed is not up to par. If your reading speed is not up to par, you are definitely going to end up wasting a lot of time during the exam. As I mentioned earlier, the examiner is purposely creating a time-pressured environment to see whether you can manage in a stressful situation. So when you're running out of time, you will be exposed to stressful situations unnecessarily. So in order to avoid such a situation, if you feel that your reading speed is not up to standard, on a daily basis, dedicate 30 minutes of your time and practice reading, because the only way to improve your reading speed is to practice reading. So you are supposed to read through the scenario, the entire scenario, which includes the reference material, within just 5 to 7 minutes. So if you look at a typical mock exam, so this is taken from mock exam 5, section number 3. As you can see, there's a scenario and a requirement, and there's another scenario with a requirement, and there's a third scenario with a requirement, and there's some reference material as well. So you need to read through all this information within just 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, so that's your first step. So after you have read through the scenario, you should not start typing your final answer in paragraph form. Instead, you need to do some activities with the intention of planning out your answer and developing an answer which is totally aligned with each requirement. So after reading through the scenario, before you develop the answer, you are supposed to reiterate each requirement in your own words in a concise manner. So this is done with 2 objectives in mind. Objective number 1 of simplifying a requirement is to gain clarity, because when you simplify a requirement in your own words, you are doing this with the intention of gaining an in-depth understanding of what you are expected to achieve when developing your answer. And at the same time, when you have access to a simplified requirement, whilst developing your answer or whilst planning out your answer, you can refer back to a simplified requirement and easily figure out whether you are developing an answer which is aligned with the requirement or not. So it helps to have access to a simplified requirement. So that is why I want you guys to before developing the answer plans or before planning out your answers to simplify each requirement in your own words. So let me quickly tell you how we are supposed to do it. So if you look at this requirement, which is quite long, given that the subsidiary charged SoPa double the actual cost of the app development, explain the adjustments required to ensure compliance with transfer pricing regulations. Additionally, discuss whether this pricing strategy constitutes tax evasion, avoidance, or mitigation. So at the outset, we can see that this requirement is divided into two main areas. So when you have access to this type of an extended requirement, it is not going to make your life easy. So in order to ensure that you gain a deeper understanding of what you expected to achieve in your answer, you are supposed to simplify this in your own words. So that's exactly what you can see in here. So I'm directing your attention towards the answer plan, which I've developed for mock number 5. So I've simplified the requirement in this manner. This question is about transfer pricing. Given the subsidiary charged SoPa double the actual cost for the app development, explain the adjustments required to ensure compliance with transfer pricing regulations. So this question is focused on transfer pricing. Explain how to comply with transfer pricing regulations when setting the price. That's the first part of your requirement, which I've simplified in my own words. And also, you are supposed to suggest whether the price constitutes as tax evasion, avoidance, or mitigation. This says, additionally, discuss whether this pricing strategy constitutes tax evasion, avoidance, or mitigation. I've simplified it as suggested price. Is it tax evasion? Is it avoidance? Or is it tax mitigation? So you are supposed to simplify the requirement before you plan out your answer. Similarly, let me direct your attention towards the second subtask. You are supposed to explain the graph and describe the optimum production plan. Also determine how we can overcome binding constraints and how we can set the maximum price when purchasing additional resources. So again, this question is divided into two main parts. So in order to gain clarity, you are supposed to simplify the requirement. You are supposed to first things first, explain the graph. That's your first element. Secondly, you are supposed to, based on your evaluation or explanation of the graph, you are supposed to describe the optimum production plan. Thirdly, you are supposed to highlight as to how to overcome binding constraints. And fourthly, you are supposed to highlight as to how to set the maximum price. So this question consists of four main areas, which you cannot identify when you read through the requirement. Instead, when you simplify the requirement, you will gain clarity. You will know, how many areas this, question is focused on. And when developing your answers, your job is to ensure that you come up with answers addressing all four requirements. Okay, you are supposed to explain the graph, describe the optimum production plan, also highlight how to overcome binding constraints and how to set the maximum price. And similarly, looking at the first requirement, which is quite short compared to the rest, I hope you can explain each of these variances, highlighting the reasons for their occurrence. I've shortened it or summarized it as labor variances, explain each variance. So keep it simple, simplify each requirement with the prime objective of gaining clarity or gaining a clear understanding of what you are expected to cover in your answer. Because most students, when operating under a stressful exam condition, they misidentify what the requirement is, or they understand the requirement partially. For instance, if you look at a question such as this, you are supposed to do four things: explain the graph, you are supposed to talk about the optimum production plan, talk about how to overcome binding constraints, and how to set the maximum price. But under pressure, students tend to forget about all four areas. Therefore, they will only focus their attention on one or two elements of the question. So most students will end up explaining the graph and describing the optimum production plan, forgetting about binding constraints as well as how to set the maximum price. So in order to avoid such situations, in order to gain clarity, you are supposed to simplify each requirement in your own words. If so, you will know exactly what you are supposed to cover in your answer. And whilst planning out your answer, if you want to check whether your answer is headed in the correct direction, if you want to check whether your answer is aligned with the requirement, it helps when you have access to a simplified requirement rather than having to read through an extended requirement. Okay, so that's the second step as per our answering technique. Before you plan out your answer, you're supposed to reiterate each requirement in your own words in a simple manner. And then you are supposed to develop headings and subheadings. And when it comes to determining the number of headings and subheadings, you need to look at the number of subtasks which appear within a section. So if you look at this section, which is section number 3, there are 3 subtasks in total. Subtask A, subtask B, as well as subtask C. So if there are 3 subtasks, then in your final answer, there should be 3 main headings, and each main heading should be in bold and underlined format. Similarly, in certain subtasks, you will just see 2, in certain sections rather, you will see just 2 subtasks. If that is the case, in your final answer, there should be 2 main headings in bold and underlined format. So what you need to remember is the fact that the number of main headings should be aligned with the number of subtasks which appear within a section, and each main heading should be in bold and underlined format. And within a certain subtask, once you have come up with a main heading, if you feel that you need to further fraction out your answer or divide your answer, then you are invited to utilize subheadings, and each subheading should be in bold format. Let me quickly show you what I'm talking about. So if you look at this answer, this is the fully fledged answer which I've developed for section number 3. So we are in section number 3, and as I mentioned earlier, in section number 3, there are 3 subtasks as per our mock, which I'm sharing with you right now. So this is my first main heading, which is in bold and underlined format. And within this section itself, I thought of fractioning out my answer by using subheadings which are in bold format. So you can clearly see the difference between main headings and subheadings. So this is the main heading, which highlights the fact that I'm developing the answer which is focused on subtask A. I've never mentioned the subtask number. Instead, just like what I do at office, I've come up with a main heading focused on each subtask. So I've utilized a main heading which is in bold and underlined format, and with the intention of fractioning out my answer, I've come up with subheadings which are in bold format. Similarly, if you look at section number 2, I've come up with a main heading which is in bold and underlined format, and with the intention of fractioning out my answer, I've come up with subheadings which are in bold format. So this is exactly what you can see here. You can see another subheading in here which is in bold format, and focused on the third subtask, I've come up with a main heading which is in bold and underlined format, and I've come up with subheadings with the intention of fractioning out my answer further. Okay, so that's what you need to focus on after you have reiterated each requirement in your own words in a concise manner. So come up with your headings and subheadings before you plan out your entire answer, and then you should focus on developing the answer plan or the summarized version of your fully fledged answer. So when doing so, you are supposed to dedicate 20 minutes of your time. I don't mind even if you take 25 minutes, as long as you plan out your answer focused on all subtasks which appear within a section within just 25 minutes, I'm going to be happy. Okay, because as I mentioned earlier, this is exactly how you would behave in a real life corporate environment when you have access to a complex email which carries a lot of requirements, which carry a lot of information. This is exactly what you would do. You will spend some time to plan out your response. So in order to score extremely good marks at your exam, before typing out your final answer, you need to spend 20 to 25 minutes to plan your answer. And when it comes to planning your answer, you need to, first things first, identify how many answer points you need to include under each subtask. And this can be identified by looking at the weightages provided at the very end of each subtask. So as you can see, this is subtask A, and the weightage provided is 28%. And in subtask B, the weightage provided is 52%. And in subtask C, the weightage provided is 20%. So these weightages give us an indication of mark allocations. So before you think about how many points you need to include under each subtask, you need to gain a clear understanding of the marks dedicated for each and every subtask. So first things first, before you develop the answer plan, before you determine how many points you should include under each subtask, you need to gain an understanding of the mark allocations. So as you know, each section carries a total mark allocation of 37.5 marks. So 28%. So the weightage for subtask A is 28%. So 28% of 37.5 marks come up to 10.5 marks in total. Similarly, if you look at subtask B, the weightage provided is 52%. So 52% of 37.5 marks come up to 19.5 marks in total. And looking at subtask C, the weightage provided is 20%. So 20% of 37.5 marks come up to 7.5 marks in total. So now you have identified the mark allocations. Once you have identified the mark allocations, then you are supposed to determine how many answer points you need to include under each and every subtask. So as you know, as per the Cima examiner, each valid point will carry 2 or 3 marks. So in order to score 10.5 marks, you need to understand how many answer points you need to include in your answer. So divide 10.5 by 3, given the fact that each valid point can carry 3 marks or 2 marks. So divide 10.5 by 3, you get an answer which is 3.5. You can round it up to 4. And again, divide 10.5 by 2, you get an answer which is 5.25, which can be rounded down to 5. So if you include 4 to 5 valid points for the first subtask, you are going to get full marks. Similarly, let's look at the second subtask and try to identify how many answer points you need to include under the second subtask. So the mark allocation is 19.5. As you know, each valid point will carry 2 or 3 marks. So assuming that you are coming to you are trying to come up with answer points which carry 3 marks, divide 19.5 by 3, you get an answer which is 6.5. Again, assuming that each valid point will only carry 2 marks, divide 19.5 by 2, you get an answer which is 9.75, or you can round it up to 3. So if you include 7 to 10 valid points, you will get the full marks dedicated for subtask B. Similarly, in order to score 7.5 marks, you need to understand how many points you need to include in your answer. So divide 7.5 by 3, you get an answer which is 2.5. Then divide 7.5 by 2, you get an answer which is 3.75 or 4. So if you include 3 to 4 valid points, you will get 7.5 marks as per the mark allocations. Okay, so that's how we are supposed to determine how many answer points you need to include in your answer. Once you have understood this, then you are supposed to focus your attention towards planning the answer. And when developing the answer plan, you need to develop something like this. Let me quickly show you what I'm talking about. You need to develop something like this. As you can see, I've not come up with extremely long sentences. These are single line sentences. And you see a lot of bullet points because my objective is to structure my answer or plan out my answer. Because I said that you are supposed to dedicate 20 to 25 minutes to do this. So when planning out your response or planning out your answer, you are not supposed to write everything in paragraph form. Keep it simple so that because you are only involved with planning, you are just involved with thinking and strategizing your answer. So this is how you should how a typical answer plan should look like, which should be in paragraph, which should be in bullet points. And when developing this answer plan, develop it on the answer screen itself. Do not utilize the scratch pad because what you type on the scratch pad will be deleted by the time your time runs out. The marker has no access to what you typed on the scratch pad. Instead, the marker has access to what you type on the answer screen. So because of that, if by any chance you run out of time, you still have remnants of your answer plan on your answer screen. So if you're running short of just 2 or 3 marks, if your answer points are valid, the marker might give you some marks. So it is better to develop the answer plan on the answer screen itself. And it helps you when gaining access to the reference material as well as the requirement when you're on the answer screen itself, rather than dealing with an additional pop-up, which is your scratch pad. When you have to shift between additional pop-ups, it's not going to help you. That is why it's beneficial for you to develop the answer plan on the answer screen itself. And once you have developed the answer plan, then utilize the remaining time. It could be 15 to 20 minutes to expand the answer plan in paragraph form, thereby developing a paragraph per answer point. So I said that when it comes to planning out your answer plan should look something like this, which is in a concise form, whereas your final answer should look something like this. As you can see, the entire answer is in paragraph form. I've come up with a paragraph focused on each valid point, which I've highlighted within the answer, highlighted within my answer plan. So what happens is when you develop answers like this, when you come up with a paragraph, when you develop a paragraph per answer point, you are actually assisting the marker, because the marker can easily count and see how many points you have included in your answer. And then out of these paragraphs, the marker can easily determine which of the paragraphs are accurate, which of the paragraphs are inaccurate. Then the marker can easily dedicate marks based on the number of paragraphs which you have included in your answer. But alternatively, if you are an individual who is well versed with writing the entire answer together as one single paragraph, you're actually not assisting the marker, because then the marker will have to spend some additional time to figure out how many points you have included in your answer. And when you are not helping the marker, you are not in the good books of your marker. When this is the case, it might impact your final score. So although you are supposed to take 3 hours to practice, or 3 hours to face your entire exam, when it comes to marking, the markers are supposed to take just 10 to 13 minutes to mark your entire paper. So you have 3 hours to face the entire exam, whereas the markers have just 10 to 13 minutes to mark each and every paper. When this is the case, it is better to be on the good books of the marker, because if you write the entire answer in one single paragraph, the marker will have to spend some additional time to figure out how many points you have included in your answer. And this is not going to be too good for you, because when you're in the bad books of your marker, the marker will not award good marks to you. So that's why it's better to listen to what the Cima examiner has to tell us when it comes to structuring your answer. So within the final 15 to 20 minutes, expand the answer plan in paragraph form. Your final answer should not look something like this. Your final answer should not be in bullet points. Instead, your final answer should be in paragraph form. Therefore, develop a paragraph per main answer point. So that is the answering technique. And in a little while, I'm going to teach you how to implement these techniques in the most practical manner by taking you through a question which is taken from mock exam 5, section 3, subtask B, which is focused on linear programming, an area in which most students struggle. All right, so I highlighted these things as well. You are supposed to develop a heading per subtask, and each heading should be in bold and underline format, and you are welcome to use subheadings as well. If so, each subheading should be in bold format. And looking at the typing speed, the expected typing speed as per the Cima examiner is 20 words per minute. So if you feel that you are struggling with your typing speed, then as I mentioned earlier, if you're struggling with reading, you will end up losing a lot of time. Similarly, if you're struggling with typing, you will end up wasting a lot of time. So if you're struggling with typing, similar to what I said about improving your reading speed, you need to take steps to dedicate 30 minutes of your time on a daily basis and type something on your computer or your laptop. So purchase a newspaper or a book and start typing what appears within the newspaper or the book on your computer or your laptop on a daily basis for about 30 to 60 minutes. When you do so, you will see a significant improvement in your typing speed, because if your typing speed is not up to par, you will end up wasting a lot of time. If you waste time to type, then you will end up losing a chunk of marks at your exams. And when developing paragraph, I said that you are supposed to develop a paragraph per main answer point, and each paragraph should consist of 2 to 4 sentences. And do not spend time on formatting, such as focusing on paragraph alignment. The only type of formatting which you should be considerate about is in terms of the headings being bold and underlined, and subheadings being bold, and developing a paragraph per main answer point. Other than that, you need not worry about formatting. And focus on quality, not the quantity. I've seen tutors out there saying that if you have to score an X amount of marks, you need to include an X amount of words within your answer, which is absolute bullshit. Because I said that the examiner is trying to replicate a real life corporate environment. So you need to assume that you are actually working at an office, or you are actually working within this company. So at office, when you receive an email, when you develop a response, is your superior going to look at the number of words which you have contained within your response, or is the superior going to look at the quality of your response? The superior is always going to look at the quality. No one is going to be interested in the number of words which you have typed in your response. So the same psychology or the same methodology applies to this exam as well. None of the markers are going to dedicate marks just because your answer is lengthy. Instead, you are going to get marks based on the quality of your answer. That is why I said that before you type out your final answer, you need to spend 20 to 25 minutes to develop an answer plan or plan out your answer. When you are planning out your answer, you are thinking about how to bring in theoretical knowledge which you have gained via P1, F1, and E1. You are thinking about how to, nail application, how to develop answers which are totally aligned with the scenario's information. And you are also taking steps to ensure that your answer is well aligned with the requirement at hand. So you are gaining marks for quality. That is why you have to spend some time to plan your answer. If you do not do so, instead, if you focus on the quantity or the length of your answer, you are never going to get marks. I've seen tutors telling, some tutors out there telling this about the length or a word count. This is a professional qualification. This is not an academic qualification. So that is why you should not worry about a word count, because you are getting marks not based on the length of your answer, but based on the quality of your answer. Okay, so these are the elements which you need to really focus on. So before I direct your attention towards the mock exam, which I said I'm going to explain, I'm going to explain what we offer at TCS. So I'm on the OCS page. If you are yet to create a free user account, click on this button and create a free account. Once you have created it, you'd gain access to our student dashboard, and click on My Courses. In front of OCS Free, you'd see an Access Content button. Click on it. Once you click on it, you'd gain access to the recorded versions of the weekly webinars and workshops via the Videos tab. Under the Study Material tab, you'd gain access to the pre-seen mind map, the syllabus coverage document, as well as the answer plan of mock exam 1. And the mocks tab, you'd gain access to the questions and suggested answers of our free mock exam, which is mock exam 1. And via the exams tab, you will gain access to our exam platform, via which you can attempt mock exam 1 under exam conditions, which is the best way to practice your answering and time management techniques. So in today's webinar, you have already learned the answering and time management technique. In a little while, I'm going to show you how to practically implement these two techniques. Once you have learned these two elements, practice mock number 1 via our exam platform in its entirety under exam conditions. implement the techniques which you have learned and see whether you are still running out of time, whether you are struggling with the answering technique. Definitely you are going to struggle. It's a given because you are doing something for the first time. But as I mentioned at the very beginning of this webinar, when you keep repeating this, or when you keep practicing these techniques over and over when attempting the 7 mock exams, you will see a significant improvement in the way in which you are managing your time, as well as a significant improvement in the way in which you are structuring your answers. So practice. Without practicing these 2 techniques, just because you have learned these 2 techniques, you are not in a position to implement them successfully for the first time at your exam. That's why we are giving you the opportunity, even under the free content, we are giving you the opportunity to attempt at least one single mock exam under exam conditions, so that you have the opportunity to try and see how we are bearing with the answering, and how we are faring with the answering and time management techniques. So make use of these free resources on offer by clicking on this button. And if you're yet to join the WhatsApp discussion forum, click on this button and join it, because via this group, we are sharing hordes of free resources with you. And if you have any questions, you can get them answered instantaneously, because I'm always available via this WhatsApp group. And talking about what we offer 2 packages, the Essential course and the Value course. The Essential course is designed for those who have completed their OTQ exams. Since you have completed your OTQs, you are already conversant with what's covered within your P1 and F1 syllabi. So since you are conversant with theory, when conducting your preparations, your job is simply to brush up your application skills. So via the Essential course, you'd gain access to the recordings of all weekly webinars and workshops, 3 mock exams with suggested answers covering 36 syllabus areas, or 36 questions in total. As I mentioned earlier, since you have completed your OTQ, since you have learned all 80 conceptual elements, it's simply a matter of you having to improve your application skills, and that can be easily achieved when you take steps to attempt the 3 mock exams and conduct your revision focused on the same 3 mock exams. You will also gain access to pre-scene analysis videos. Once you have watched these videos, you will gain a sound understanding of the internals, externals, and financial situation of SoPa, your company. You'd also gain access to the annotated pre-scene, the industry analysis, and financial analysis slides. Let me quickly show you what these resources look like. So we have come up with annotations with the prime intention of summarizing the entire pre-scene. And also we have indicated the probable exam scenarios which can be tested, and tied to these probable exam scenarios, we have highlighted the syllabus areas which can be tested at the exam. And when developing our 7 mock exams, we have made sure to cover each of these scenarios as well as syllabus areas. Similarly, we have evaluated the financial statements. So as you can see, we have evaluated the SOPL. We have come up with annotations with the intention of keeping things simple so that you can easily understand what appears within each of these slides. We have evaluated the SOFP as well as the statement of cash flows. And at the very end, we have conducted ratio analysis. Again, we have evaluated each of these ratios in depth, making sure to keep things simple to make sure that you'd gain a sound understanding of the financial standing of your chosen company. Similarly, we have conducted an industry analysis, which is divided into 4 main parts. So you need not waste time to gain an understanding of how real-life companies operate within your chosen industry. We have already done it for you. So these are the type of resources on offer under the Essential course. You'd also gain access to the top 10 likely issue slides, which indicate the most probable syllabus areas which can be tested at the exam. You'd gain access to a case study familiarization kit. Once you have read through this kit, within 10 to 15 minutes, you will gain a sound understanding of the technicalities behind your OCS exam. And you also gain access to a tutor-managed live chat. And the Essential course is priced at just £149. And talking about the Value course, this is the package which covers the entire syllabus, all 80 syllabus areas. So if you opt for the Value course, you will gain access to the 7 mock exams with suggested answers covering all 80 syllabus areas. That's why you'd see 80 questions contained within these 7 mock exams in total. And this course is designed for those who are coming through the exemption route and those who had failed the OCS exam previously. Both these students have the same problem. there are gaps in theory knowledge and issues with application. So with the intention of teaching you all 80 conceptual elements, as well as teaching you how to deal with application concerning each of these 80 syllabus areas, we have included some additional resources via the value course on top of what appears under the essential course. So as I mentioned earlier, you'd gain access to the full set of mock exams, which include 7 mocks with suggested answers. And also you'd gain access to OTQ revision cards after attempting a mock exam. If you feel that you need to brush up your knowledge concerning a conceptual element, simply refer to these OTQ revision cards. You will gain access to the online mock exam platform on which you can attempt all 7 mock exams under exam conditions, which is the best way to master your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. And also, most importantly, you will gain access to the summarized versions of each suggested answer, which are termed as answer plans at TCS. So you gain access to answer plans of all 7 mock exams, which will help you learn theory and application easily, and at the same time, which will help you with revision. You will understand how important these answer plans are in a little while, because based on these answer plans, I'm going to conduct the masterclass in a minute or so. So the value course is priced at £299, which can be paid in 2 installments of £149 each. Alternatively, if you opt to pay in full, you will save £50. If so, the price is just £249. You can invest on your preferred course or your preferred payment option by clicking on either of these buttons. And let me quickly take you to the OCS study plan, which can be accessed via the website, the same web page itself. So as per the original 8-week study plan, we are in week number 3, the most hectic week, within which you need to dedicate 14 hours of study time with the intention of mastering 2 mock exams. So you are supposed to stick to the 3-step approach when it comes to attempting mock number 1, practice under exam conditions to, practice your answering, time management, and stress management techniques, then learn by reading through the answer plans, and then revise by redeveloping answer plans with the intention of solidifying your knowledge. Similarly, focus your attention towards mastering mock number 2 by sticking to the same 3-step approach. And from next week onwards, it's simply a matter of mastering a mock exam per week, thereby dedicating just 7 hours of study time. So some of you have already started your preparations thereby adhering to this 8-week study plan. If so, you are supposed to stick to this original 8-week study plan. If not, if you're yet to start preparations, I shared a 6-week study plan with you previously. So you are supposed to stick to this 6-week study plan. All right, so that's what we offer. Having said that, let me direct your attention towards the content of this webinar. So before I conduct the masterclass, let me quickly explain the technicalities behind your exam platform. So I said that we at TCS, we have developed an exam platform, which is the exact replica of the Pearson VUE system. So those who have already, done the OCS exam, you'd understand what I'm talking about. So this is how your exam platform looks like when you are about to start your paper. There will be an indication of the number of sections as well as the number of subtasks which appear within each section, along with the weightages provided. And once you click on the button begin, you'd be directed to the first section of your paper. So you can see the mock number and the section number in here. And you'd also see a timer which starts at 45 minutes and runs down to 0. So you can see the time remaining, as well as the section number, which indicates that there are 4 sections, out of which you are in section number 1. You will also see 4 different buttons. You have access to a calculator because you cannot have your own calculator with you during the exam. That is why by clicking on this button, you'd see a pop-up appearing to the right of your screen, which carries the calculator. And you'd also gain access to a scratch pad. So I said that when it comes to planning your answer, you are not supposed to utilize the scratch pad. The scratch pad should only be used whenever you want to jot something down whilst reading through the scenario. Other than that, do not utilize the scratch pad. And you'd also gain access to the reference material. Once you click on this button, you'd see pop up to the right of your screen. So once you click on the reference material button, you would see a similar pop-up which ensures that you have access to additional information within the same page. And similarly, once you click on the pre-seen button, your pre-seen will pop up to the right of your screen. Okay, so you have access to your pre-seen document as well as the reference material via your exam platform. And once you click on next, you would be directed to the answer screen. So if you look at the answer screen, you can see the same technical elements. You'd see the section number, you'd see the timer, as well as again you'd see the section number. You are in the first section out of 4 sections, and you'd see the calculator button, the scratch pad, the reference material button, and the pre-seen, and you can type your answer in here. So when I said that before you type your fully fledged answer, or before you finalize your answer, you are supposed to develop an answer plan in a concise manner. So you are supposed to develop the answer plan in here. I said that you are not supposed to utilize the scratch pad when it comes to developing the answer plan. Instead, I want you guys to develop the answer plan on the answer screen. Why am I saying it? Because whilst developing the answer plan, let's assume you want to gain access to pre-seen information. Simply click on this button, then you'd gain access to your pre-seen. So you have access to all the relevant information to the right of your screen, whilst having the ability to develop or structure your answer to the left of your screen. Similarly, let's assume you need to gain access to the requirement or the scenario. Again, click on the pre-seen button, and you would see that there are two tabs. One is named pre-seen, the other named task. So once you click on the task, you will gain access to the scenario, which indicates the fact that you need not go back to. So there is a previous button in here, as you can see. So once you click on the previous button, you would be directed to the requirement as well as the scenario. So you need not go back to the scenario. Instead, you have access to the scenario's information as a pop-up to the right of your screen, whilst having the ability to develop the answer plan onto the left of your screen. Similarly, if you look at reference material, again, once you click on the reference material button, a pop-up will appear to your right, which enables you to keep developing the answer plan on the left of your screen, whilst having access to the reference material within the same answer screen, whilst having access to the requirement or the task, as well as having access to the pre-seen document. So you have access to all the necessary information, which includes your scenario, your pre-seen document, your reference material onto the right of your screen, which gives you the opportunity to keep developing the answer plan to the left of your screen without any hindrances. Okay, so you can do something like this. You can keep developing, because your answer plan is short, so you can keep developing the answer plan onto the left of your screen whilst having access to the reference material, pre-seen document, as well as the requirement onto the right of your screen. So once you complete your answer, so once you have developed the answer plan, then I said that you are supposed to finalize your answer in paragraph form. Once you're done with it, let's assume that you completed the entire section within just 43 minutes. So your time allocation is 45 minutes. You have 2 minutes remaining, but you are done with your entire answer. If that is the case, click on submit answer. Once you click on submit answer, you would see a pop-up which asks for confirmation as to whether you really need to proceed to the next section or not. Once you click on yes, you would be directed to your second section. The technicalities are the same. You see the same buttons, only the section number is different. You would see the timer running down from 45 minutes. You are in section number 2 out of 4 sections, and there is no previous button. There is only a next button. So this highlights the fact that once you're done with section number 1, and when you're directed to section number 2, you cannot go back to section number 1. So that is why you need to come up with a time management plan with the intention of managing 4 slots of 45 minutes each. Because once you are in section number 2, for instance, you cannot go back to section number 1. So as per the answering and time management technique I highlighted previously, you are supposed to dedicate 7 minutes of your time to read through the scenario, then you are supposed to dedicate 20 to 25 minutes of your time to develop the answer plan. I said that you are supposed to develop the answer plan on the answer screen itself, and the remaining 15 to 20 minutes of your time should be dedicated towards expanding the answer plan in paragraph 4. Okay, so this is how your exam platform looks like, and this is how your exam platform works rather. And this is exactly how TCS's exam platform works, which gives you the opportunity to practice each mock under real exam conditions so that you have all the support needed to master your answering, time management, and stress management techniques before you walk into your exam. Okay, so having said that, I'm directing your attention towards the masterclass in which I'm going to discuss the question and answer concerning mock number 5, section 3, subtask B. Okay, so let's look at how we should approach this question. So I'm going to direct your attention towards section number 3 of mock number 5, subtask B. Okay, so you are supposed to, as per our answering technique, read the scenario, dedicating 5 minutes of your time. So I'm not going to read through the entire scenario of the entire section. Instead, I'm going to direct your attention towards simply subtask B, because I'm going to conduct the masterclass solely focused on subtask B. According to the operations director, SoPa may face capacity constraints at its main restaurant in Tombo because the new dip range is being produced within the restaurant's kitchen. So within the pre-scene, it was indicated that the company is contemplating about introducing a new dip range. So based on this premise, I've developed this question. So as per the pre-scene, our main restaurant is based in Tombo, and we are planning, we have actually started to manufacture the new dip range within this restaurant, which is based in Tombo. And because of that, SoPa may face capacity constraints. Who is telling us this? Our operations director. So according to the operations director, SoPa may face capacity constraints at its main restaurant in Tombo because the new dip range is being produced within the restaurant's kitchen. As kitchen space and resources are now shared between restaurant operations and dip production, this has started to place pressure on capacity and may disrupt the efficient running of the Tombo branch. So on top of the traditional way of doing business within the Tombo branch, which was about running restaurant operations, now we have to also focus on dip manufacturing related operations, which has created a capacity constraint within the Tombo branch, because we have to run our restaurant operations, and as well and on top of that, we have to focus on manufacturing the new dip range as well. To assess whether these concerns are valid, the finance director has prepared a linear programming graph. See reference material. So let's look at what this reference material looks like. So you can see various different lines within this graph, and the finance director has named each of these lines as well. So the dark blue line indicates the maximum demand for our existing menu items, which are manufactured within our Tombo restaurant. And the light blue line indicates the maximum demand for the dip range, the new range which we are manufacturing within the Tombo kitchen. And there's an orange colored line which indicates the labor hour constraint, which indicates how many labor hours we have access to when running operations within Tombo's kitchen. And also there's a red colored line which indicates about machine hours, how many machine hours we have access to within the Tombo restaurant. And there is a green colored line which is termed as the ISO contribution line. Okay, so this is the linear programming graph the finance director has shared with us. Note that the graph's x-axis represents the number of existing menu items produced, which is this axis, existing menu items produced, and the y-axis represents what? The y-axis represents the number of dip units produced. So this axis highlights the number of new dip units or the dip range units produced. Okay, so that's these are the information shared with us. So looking at the requirement, you are supposed to explain the graph and describe the optimum production plan, and also determine how we can overcome binding constraints and how we can set the maximum price when purchasing additional resources. All right, so that's, I've read through the scenario. That's the first step. The second step before you develop the answer plan is to reiterate each requirement in your own words in a concise manner. So you are supposed to simplify this requirement in your own words. So how are we supposed to do it? I showed you previously as well as to how to simplify the requirement, which is shown in here. The first part is to explain the graph. You are supposed to explain the graph. So that's my, first part of my answer. That should be the first part of my answer. Then describe the optimum production plan. That's part number 2. Describe the optimum production plan and also determine how we can overcome binding constraints. How to overcome binding constraints. That's the third part of my answer. How to overcome binding constraints and how we can set the maximum price when purchasing additional resources. So how to set the maximum price. So it helps to simplify the requirement in your own words. So I've done it. So we are done with the second step as per our answering technique. And then you are supposed to, determine the headings and subheadings. So I've come up with a heading which reads as, give me a second, please. I've come up with a heading which reads as linear programming. Yeah, linear programming graph, which is in bold and underline format. And I thought of further fractioning out my answer. Therefore, I've come up with subheadings in bold format, explanation of the graph and the optimum production plan. So I'm, covering these two elements as part of the first part, as the first part of my answer. And secondly, I've come up with another subheading, which reads as overcoming the binding capacity constraint and maximum price to pay for additional resources, which is therefore covering the second part of the requirement, how to overcome the binding constraint and how to set the maximum price. So I've come up with the main headings as well as subheadings, and then I'm directing my attention towards developing the answer plan. In order to develop the answer plan, I'm supposed to take 20 to 25 minutes. I'm talking about taking 20 to 25 minutes to develop the answer plan focused on all 3 subtasks. I do not have time to take you through all 3 subtasks which are contained within section number 3. Therefore, I'm simply going to direct your attention towards one single subtask. But when you are implementing this answering technique, always make sure to dedicate 20 to 25 minutes of your time to develop the answer plan focused on or covering all subtasks which appear within a section. So before we try to develop the answer plan, you are supposed to determine mark allocations based on the weightages. So I explained this thing, this area earlier as well. So the weightage provided is 52%. That's exactly what you can see here. Each valid point will carry 2 or 3 marks. So assuming that each of my valid points will carry 3 marks, divide 19.5 by 3, you'd get an answer which is 6.5 or round it up to 7. And assuming that each of your valid points will carry just 2 marks, divide 19.5 by 2, you'd get an answer which is 9.75 or round it up to 10. So if you include 7 to 10 valid points within this answer, you are well poised to score full marks. Okay, so you are supposed to include 7 to 10 valid points. Okay, so we have covered that as well. Once you have done it, then you have to develop the answer plan on the answer screen. So let's try to understand how to approach this type of a question. So let me scroll down to the relevant area. So we are in section number 3. I'm going to direct your attention towards subtask B. So I've come up with a main heading which reads as linear programming graph, which is in bold and underline format. So I'm starting my answer by defining what this type of a graph is. So a linear programming graph shows the current situation of the company in terms of available resources. So this graph, give me a second, please. this graph gives us a clear snapshot of the current situation of the current situation of the company. So this gives us a snapshot of what we are doing within the Tombo branch, within the restaurant of the Tombo branch. So how many products are we manufacturing, or how many product ranges are we manufacturing? We are manufacturing or producing the existing menu items. And at the same time, as per this graph, we are producing the new dip range as well. So existing menu items as well as the new dip range. That is our situation at the moment. So this graph shows the current situation of the company in terms of available resources. So which resources are we talking about? We are talking about labor hours, because there's a line which depicts how much labor hours we have access to. And at the same time, we can gain an understanding of our how much machine hours we have access to, because there's a red colored separate line which is denoted in here. Okay, so this graph shows the current situation of the company in terms of the available resources, which constitute of machine hours as well as labor hours. So I've started my answer by defining what a linear programming graph is, and then I'm proceeding towards explaining the graph. And based on my explanation, I'm going to highlight the optimum production plan when dealing with these scarce resources. So what you need to understand is the fact that a company will develop a linear programming graph whenever they are exposed to resource constraints or some type of scarcity. So if you look at how the restaurant in Tombo operated, we were only selling our meals, which were sold to our customers in a traditional sense. But since recently, we started manufacturing the new dip range as well. Due to us trying to manufacture this new dip range, we are exposed to resource constraints or a scarcity in resource. So whenever a company is experiencing any type of scarcity or any type of resource constraint, it is prudent to draw up a linear programming graph to identify how best we can utilize the scarce resources with the intention of generating the highest amount of contribution utilizing scarce resources. So we are exposed to scarce resources as per what the production director is telling us. Based on this understanding, the finance director has developed a linear programming graph. And what does this graph tell us? It gives us a clear picture about the fact that we are manufacturing our existing range as well as the new dip range, which had exposed us to scarce resources. And by looking at the linear programming graph, we can determine the optimal production plan, which indicates as to how we can maximize contribution when being exposed to scarce resources. Okay, so that's what this graph is all about. Then you need to, when it comes to explaining this graph, first things first, you need to explain the axis. So there are two axes, the x-axis, which is this. I'm going to write an x here, as well as there is a y-axis. Okay, so the x-axis shows the number of units of the existing menu items produced, as I mentioned earlier, and the y-axis indicates the number of units of the new dip range that can be produced. So I'm starting my answer when it comes to explaining the graph by explaining what the axes represent. Then I'm directing my attention towards highlighting the feasible region. So the feasible region is the area where all possible combinations of output are contained. So the feasible region gives us or paints a picture about all possible combinations of output can be contained. So what type of output are we talking about? Our existing menu items as well as the new dip range. So when looking at the feasible region, what you need to understand is the fact that this is the demand for our existing menu items. So the demand can be read as something as 26,000. I'm just rounding stuff up. Okay, we can see that as per this graph, the demand for our existing menu items or our existing food range is just 26,000 units per month. And similarly, looking at the maximum demand for the dip range, the new range, we can see that the demand is somewhere around 6,000 units per month. Okay, so there's absolutely no point of trying to produce more than 6,000 units of the new dip range, because that's the maximum demand for this range. When the demand is for 6,000 units, there's absolutely no point of producing 7,000 units, because if we produce 7,000 units, 1,000 units will remain unsold at the end of the month. So when the maximum demand is 6,000 units, that's what we should strive to manufacture. And similarly, when the maximum demand for our existing menu items is just 26,000 units, there's absolutely no point of trying to manufacture more than 26,000 units. So these factors form, the boundary of the feasible region as per this graph which the examiner has shared with you. So this is our feasible region, which is bound by the demand. I'm sorry, I didn't get this right. Let me draw it once more. Oops. So this is our feasible region. Okay, so this entire area is our feasible region. And as I mentioned earlier, the feasible region is the area where all possible combinations of output are contained. And this is the area to the left of the demand for the existing menu items, left of the demand for the existing menu items, to the left of the demand, to the left of this line, and below the demand for the new dip range, below this line for the new dip range. So this is our feasible region. There's absolutely no point of producing beyond this region. And on top of that, when you look at this feasible region, you can see that one of the lines which highlights about resource availability goes through this feasible region, which is our labor hour line, which is denoted in the in orange. If you look at the red colored line closely, if you zoom in, you can see that the red colored line, which is our machine hour constraint, lies above the feasible region. So this indicates the fact that machine hours is actually not a scarce resource, because we have some additional machine hours at our disposal compared to labor hours. So labor hours, definitely there's a scarcity because it falls within the feasible region, whereas the red colored line, which denotes the machine hours which we have access to, we have some additional machine hours at our disposal. So that can be identified by looking at this graph. Okay, so these are the two things which I understood by looking at when marking this feasible region. Okay, so I've highlighted what the feasible region is. And once we have highlighted the feasible region or identified the feasible region, we can easily identify the constraint lines. So the constraint lines gives us an indication about the maximum that can be produced as per the existing resources. So we cannot manufacture beyond this line. We cannot manufacture more than 26,000 units of our existing menu items given our scarcity of resources. And at the same time, it makes no business sense to manufacture more than the demand. The same could be said about the dip range. There's absolutely no point of manufacturing more than 6,000 units per month, given the fact that it makes no business sense to manufacture more than 6,000 units when the demand is just 6,000. And on top of that, given our resource constraints, we cannot manufacture more than 6,000 units of the new dip range. Okay, so that's exactly what you can see here. The feasible region is bound by three constraints, which are known as binding constraints. So what are these three binding constraints? So these are the type of constraint lines which fall within the feasible region. So the demand for the existing menu items form one of the boundaries of the feasible region, and the demand for the new dip range forms another boundary of the feasible region. And within this feasible region, you can see the orange color line falling within this feasible region. So these three lines are considered to be binding constraints. And as I mentioned earlier, the red colored line, which denotes machine hours, how much machine hours we have access to, kitchen capacity or machine hours, is not currently a binding constraint. Why is this the case? Because this lies beyond or above the feasible region. So by looking at this graph, when it comes to managing scarce resources, what we need to really focus on is with regards to the demand for our existing menu items, the demand for the new dip range, as well as the labor hour constraint, which are also termed as the binding constraints. Okay, so we have identified the binding constraints. Then after explaining the constraint lines, you should move towards explaining the ISO contribution line. So this, again, you have to start by explaining or defining what this ISO contribution line is all about. So the ISO contribution line, which is denoted by this green colored line, indicates the contribution that can be earned from all combinations of existing and new ranges. So when you combine both the new as well as the existing range, you will end up generating a contribution. So the highest contribution which we can achieve by combining both the existing and new ranges are denoted by this ISO contribution line. So when dealing with scarce resources, our objective should be to increase our contribution as much as possible. So with this in mind, our job when it comes to determining how to utilize our scarce resources is to ensure that we end up manufacturing both these types of products, the existing menu items as well as the new dip range, whilst making sure to generate the highest amount of contribution. So that is why we have to, try and push this line, this ISO contribution line, to the right as much as possible, whilst remaining within the feasible region. So the extreme of this feasible region is this area, but we cannot produce at this area given the fact that before arriving at this area, we are encountering a constraint, which is our labor hours. So we have to, whilst remaining within the feasible region, try and move to the ISO contribution line to the right as much as possible. So the extreme right is this area, but we cannot move it to this area given the fact that we are experiencing a constraint line in here. So we have to push it to the right. And when it comes to pushing this line to the right, it should stop somewhere here, the area in which the demand for the dip range as well as the labor hour constraint line intersects. So if you look at this area, this comes up to something like, let's say, 23,000 units. Okay. And if you look at this area, this comes up to 6,000 units. Okay. So that's exactly what's highlighted within my answer. To maximize contribution, we have to move the line, the ISO contribution line, to the extreme right, remaining within the feasible region. And the furthest point which we can move this line to highlights the maximum contribution. This is the area where the labor hour constraint line and the demand line of the dip range intersect. That's exactly what you can see here. This is the area which will generate the highest contribution. This area denotes the area in which we can generate the highest contribution by manufacturing both the existing menu items as well as the new dip range, which enables us to generate the highest contribution utilizing our scarce resources. So as per that, the optimum production plan is to manufacture 23,000 units of the existing menu items and 6,000 units of the new dip range. If we do so, if we strive to manufacture these number of units, then utilizing our scarce resources, we are well poised to generate the highest level of contribution. I said that the linear programming graph is drawn whenever a company is exposed to some type of a constraint. So that's exactly what we are experiencing right now, given the fact that we are trying to do something new. We are trying to manufacture the new dip range utilizing the existing resources used within the Tombow restaurant. And when this is happening, we have to come up with methodology to figure out how we utilize these scarce resources with the intention of generating the highest amount of contribution. And this is the plan which we arrived at by looking at this linear programming graph. So if we are to utilize our scarce resources at the optimal level, we have to focus on achieving the highest level of contribution. So as per this graph, to achieve the highest level of contribution, we have to end up manufacturing 23,000 units of the existing menu items and 6,000 units of the new dip range. Okay, so I've addressed the first two parts of your requirement, which was to explain the graph. I've explained the two axes. I've explained the feasible region. I've explained the constraint lines as well as the ISO contribution line. Based on my explanations, I've highlighted the optimum production plan, which is to manufacture 23,000 units of the existing menu items and 6,000 units of the new dip range. So when addressing this type of a question, you need to stick to the exact structure. When it comes to explaining the graph, first things first, explain the axis, then move to the feasible region, then move to the constraint lines, then move to the ISO contribution line. Based on your evaluation, determine the optimum production plan. If you replicate the same points during your real exam, you are going to get full marks for this type of a question. So two more areas are remaining concerning this question. You are supposed to also highlight how to overcome the binding capacity constraint and how to determine the maximum price we should pay to gain access to additional resources. So as per our initial analysis, the binding constraint is labor hours. Why is this the case? Because the labor hour line is falling within the feasible region, whereas the machine hour constraint line is falling above or beyond the feasible region, which shows that we have some access. We have access to some additional machine hours, whereas there's a limitedness of resources concerning labor availability. So this is our binding constraint. So you are supposed to highlight as to how to overcome this binding constraint. So to overcome labor hours as a binding constraint, the short-term solution is to increase labor availability. So we can hire temporary staff members, or we can recruit contract kitchen staff or recruit kitchen staff on contract basis. This provides flexibility without long-term employment commitments. However, this may increase short-term labor costs. Alternatively, we can outsource labor-intensive tasks because we are experiencing some constraints tied to labor availability. So rather than recruiting part-timers for now, we can also focus on outsourcing certain labor-intensive tasks related to dip manufacturing, because our existing staff members who are working within Tombow are already conversant with how a restaurant operates on a daily basis. So something which we are trying to do new is in terms of manufacturing dips. So this is the area which we should outsource if we are to gain access to additional labor resources. So for instance, we can outsource ingredient preparation or packaging to a skilled and capable third party. And this will ensure that we are freeing up time for focused on our kitchen staff who can then focus on general restaurant operations. And we can also opt for a medium-term solution as well. We can utilize automation and robotics in restaurant operations, because it is clearly mentioned within your pre-scene about the fact that how the industry can change into the future. So the examiner has hinted about what can be tested and what should be utilized when you are developing your answers. That's exactly what you can see in here. I've taken information directly from the pre-scene. We can rely on automation and robotics within restaurant operations with the intention of getting rid of labor-related constraints. And we can automate systems for food preparation and service. This will ensure that meal preparation times will reduce significantly. This improves kitchen efficiency and increases productive capacity, as well as reduces our reliance on manual labor, which is a problem at the moment. Okay, and that is how we can overcome the binding capacity constraint, which is labor hours. So I've highlighted about how we can overcome this issue in the short term as well as the medium term. And then I'm directing your attention towards how to indicate or identify the maximum price we should pay when we are trying to gain access to additional resources. So the maximum price to pay for additional resources, when computing the maximum price, we need to consider two different elements, the shadow price as well as the normal price of the resource. So the resource which we are considering is labor. So let's assume that we are paying $10 per hour at the moment on average, then that becomes the normal price of the resource. And on top of that, you are supposed to determine something called a shadow price before you finalize the maximum price which we should pay to gain access to an additional hour of labor resource. So we are facing a scarcity tied to labor resources. So in order to improve capacity, in order to get rid of these capacity constraints, we have to introduce new labor resources. When introducing an hour of labor resource, we need to understand how much we are supposed to spend as a company. So that is what is denoted by the maximum price. So when trying to compute how much we need to pay for an additional hour of labor resource, we need to combine the shadow price and the normal price of the resource. We can easily determine the normal price of the resource because that's the charge which we are paying on average at the moment on an hourly basis. However, we should also think about something called a shadow price. So how can you compute the shadow price? When computing the shadow price, you should primarily focus your attention towards binding constraints such as labor hours as per this scenario. So the shadow price of a binding constraint denotes the additional contribution earned by having an additional labor hour available. So if we have access to an additional labor hour, how much contribution can we generate? That is your shadow price. So let's assume that if we have access to an additional labor hour, our contribution, the contribution which we end up generating is $15. So that becomes our shadow price. So our maximum price is the shadow price plus the normal price of the resource. So 15 plus 10, I've utilized assumptions with the intention of explaining stuff to you. So if the shadow price is 15, which is the additional contribution which we earn by having an additional labor hour at our disposal, plus the normal price of the resource, which is $10 per hour. When you combine these together, 15 to 10, you'd arrive at a maximum price of $25 per hour. Okay, so if we opt for outsourcing, if we recruit someone externally with the intention of getting access to more labor resources, the maximum price which we should pay is $25 per hour. And what about the constraints which are non-binding, which are also known as slack resources, such as kitchen machine hours? The shadow price is zero because we do not, there's no need for us to gain access to additional machine hours, given the fact that we have some additional machine hours at our disposal. So this is considered as a slack resource. As I mentioned earlier, the machine hour constraint line is not falling within the feasible region, which highlights the fact that this is not a constraint. Actually, this is not a binding constraint. This is a non-binding constraint, which indicates that we have some additional machine hours at our disposal. So there's absolutely no point of trying to pay for resources which we have, excess resources which we have access to. So because of that, the shadow price of non-binding constraints or slack resources are always zero. And if SoPa pays the maximum price for additional resources, the total contribution will be constant. So as per the numbers which are utilized, if the maximum price which we need to pay to gain access to an additional labor hour is just $25, and if we pay the same amount, the contribution will remain constant. However, on the other hand, if we pay something less than this, let's assume we pay something like $22 to gain access to an additional labor hour. If that is the case, our total contribution will increase, because when our maximum price is $25, when we are paying lesser than that, it is much more profitable for us because we are gaining access to an additional labor hour at a lesser cost. When this is the case, when our cost reduces, our contribution will increase. Our total contribution will increase in the future. And always remember, the shadow price is only valid for a limited range. because the shadow price changes. This shadow price, I said that it might come up to $15, but the shadow price might change in the future when other slack resources such as kitchen machine hours also become binding. Okay, how can that happen? Let's assume that as per the existing information at hand, the demand for the existing menu items is 26,000 units. But let's assume in the future, the demand increases to 30,000 units. Similarly, in the future, at present, the demand for the existing dip range is just 6,000 units. But in the future, let's assume the demand for the dip range increases to 10,000 units. When this is the case, this is our new, this forms the boundary of the new feasible region. And due to this new feasible region, machine hours, which used to be a slack resource previously, has now become a binding constraint, because now machine hours also fall within the feasible region. Okay, so when the demand increases, slack resources, which used to be slack previously, might become binding constraints in the future, and therefore the shadow price will change, because when computing the shadow price, now we have to consider not just labor hours, but we have to consider a shadow price for machine hours as well, and combine all these things when computing the maximum price which we need to pay to gain access to additional resources, which will comprise of labor, an hour of labor resources, and an hour of machine resources. Okay, so that's how you should develop the answer. Once you have planned out your answer within the answer screen, then you are supposed to expand the answer plan in paragraph form, thereby developing a paragraph per main answer point, taking 15 to 20 minutes of your time. So utilizing the remaining 15 to 20 minutes at the very end of each section, you are supposed to expand your answer plan in paragraph form. That's exactly what you can see in here. Although my answer plan looks something like this, although my answer plan is in simple terms, in bullet points, my final answer, my extended answer, is in paragraph form. Okay, so that's the answering and time management technique, with the intention of explaining practically as to how to implement these two techniques. I took you through a question tied to linear programming. So I hope you understood how easy it is to understand the logic behind each answer, how to approach each conceptual element, how to identify the exact points you need to include concerning each conceptual element when you have access to these answer plans. Because at the exam, if you have a chance of replicating the same points, you are going to get full marks. So if there's a question to do with how to overcome binding constraints and how to determine a maximum price, highlight the same points. If you do so, you are going to get full marks. And that is why I said that after reading through answer plans, as the third step, as per our three-step approach when it comes to mastering each mock exam, you are supposed to revise by redeveloping answer plans. So when you try to redevelop answer plans, you are trying to create the same type of points on your own. Yes, when you read through, you will understand, but you need to make sure that you really remember all the points, each and every point, without any hiccups. So that is why you have to keep this TCS's answer plan aside and try to develop the answer plan on your own. Once you have created your answer plan, compare your fresh answer plan to TCS's and try to figure out whether you have missed out on any of the points. If you are missing out on major points, keep developing the answer plan over and over until you are satisfied about the fact that you are covering the entire answer plan on your own without any issues. If so, you can rest assured that you will remember the exact points on the day of the exam. Okay, so that's what I wanted to highlight with or share with you. So I invite you to practice answering and time management techniques which you learned right now by attempting mock number 1 via our exam platform, which is the replica of the Pearson VUE system. So you need not purchase any of our paid content. Even under the free content, you have the opportunity of attempting mock number 1 under exam conditions. And I'm happy to say that we achieved a 92% pass rate in February 2026. We are yet to finalize the results concerning May 2026. So many students have passed. I'm pretty sure our pass rate is above 85%, because almost everyone has passed. So the highest scorer this time, as per the results which our students shared with us as yet, ended up scoring 119. So you can achieve a similar feat if you stick to the study plan and stick to the three-step process with the intention of mastering each mock exam. Having said that, I'm moving to the Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can switch on your mic and talk, or drop us a message via the chat. Shazad is asking a question. I see no question from E1. Well, not on mock exam 1, but because if you really think about it, the E1 syllabus is not really tested at your exam. The only E1 areas are tied to limitations of risk management tools, as well as the CGMA cost transformation model and digital costing, which appears within your P1 syllabus as well. And also the approaches to inventory management, such as EOQ and just-in-time, and non-financial factors in decision-making, ethics, CSR, managing redundancies, big data, AI, and benefits all fall under your E1 syllabus. Everything is covered within our 7 mock exams. And non-financial KPIs, which falls within P1 as well as E1. And what else is there? International taxation. The theoretical concepts are covered within your E1 syllabus, covered within our mock exams. And on top of that, if I'm not mistaken, there should be training cycle as well. It should be in this list. I cannot actually find it. Training cycle. No, I'm sorry. Training cycle is included in your SES exam. I'm extremely sorry about it. So yeah, so all E1 areas are covered within our mock exams. I hope I addressed your concern, Shazad. And Nora is asking a question. Do you recommend revisiting the materials, core activities related to the pre-scene before starting with mock exams? Not necessarily, Nora, because solely focus on the study process which we are preaching at TCS. So you need not, because we have come up with a system which helps you to cover the entire syllabus and helps you to revise appropriately. When this is the case, there's no value which you can generate by focusing on the core areas, because all core areas are covered within the mock exams. So when approaching this exam, if you look at how your knowledge is tested, the core areas of your paper is not divided as per the core areas. Instead, all core areas are mixed together. That's the exact same methodology which you'd encounter when you go through our mock exams. There's a good mix of each of the 6 core areas covered within our mocks. So you need not worry about having to go through core areas. All core areas as well as syllabus areas, therefore, are covered within the mock exams. So simply focus your attention towards mastering each mock exam by adhering to the 3-step approach, which I explained a while back. You need not do anything else, because you do not have time to waste. You just have 6 weeks at your disposal. So take steps to master each of the 80 conceptual elements by mastering the 7 mock exams by sticking to the 3-step approach. I hope I addressed your concern. Another individual is asking, the 6-week plan, is it freely available? Yes, I will be sharing this 6-week plan. Where is it? Give me a second, please. Yeah, I will be sharing this document, which is our 6-week plan, via the WhatsApp group. I hope I understood.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes. How can I help?
Yes, I've noticed that with the mock exams, you only get like one attempt like at each, and then it doesn't give you access to actually do it again. Like when you see, okay, maybe I was slower in this and that. Let me practice it again. It doesn't give you an an opportunity to do it again. Is there a reason behind that?
Yes, that's a good question. Well, as I mentioned earlier, um, we have come up with a three-step approach when it comes to mastering each mock exam. So the first step, you are talking about the first step, which is to practice each mock under exam conditions. So when it comes to practicing a mock exam, the objective is not to learn something. The objective is not to come up with the best answer. Instead, the objective is to practice your answering, time management, and stress management techniques under exam conditions. So after you attempt a mock exam, then you are supposed to dedicate your effort towards learning. After you have learned, then focus on revising by trying to nail the answer plans which we have shared with you. Try to replicate answer plans. So students tend to reattempt mocks with the intention of improving their answering technique, improving the quality of your answers. So but the problem is, if you try to reattempt a mock exam in its entirety, you are going to dedicate 3 hours of your time. So you just have 6 weeks until your exam. So if you try to reattempt mock exams by dedicating 3 hours again and again, then you are going to end up wasting a lot of time, which can alternatively be spent on revision. So rather than spending 3 hours to reattempt a mock exam from scratch, spend your time, spend, if you have 3 hours at your disposal, spend the 3 hours to redevelop answer plans, because that's the most important element of your preparatory process. Your job is to try and replicate these answer plans on your own, because if you do so, if you are in a position to remember all these points on the day of your exam, you will get full marks focused on a question uh, which is intended to test your understanding about linear programming. So you should spend a considerable amount of time, the most amount of time, towards reading through answer plans and redeveloping answer plans, rather than spending time unnecessarily to attempt mock exams, because mock attempts should be done with the idea of fine tuning your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. Whereas when it comes to fine tuning the quality of your answers, this can be achieved when you read through answer plans and take steps to keep redeveloping answer plans. Because that's exactly why, if you look at this process, after each mock attempt, I've mentioned that you need to take steps to redevelop answer plans. So in order to read the answer plans and redevelop answer plans, I've dedicated 3 hours of your time. So rather than spending 3 hours to reattempt a mock exam under exam conditions, simply take steps to read through answer plans and redevelop answer plans. I hope I'm
Yes,
clear.
I'm getting you, but with me, I've written the case study a couple of times. So this is the first time that I registered with TCS, and my biggest challenge that I've had in my failed attempts is the fact that my that thing of stress management, being calm, finishing the paper, writing everything, or most things within each section, task or subtask, and things like that. And I think your Pearson template thing that you have done is almost similar to what you actually face in the exam room, which would be a good thing to actually practice on your platform, to make sure that, because now, as much as you can know the theory or know the application, but if what you know is not being put onto the answering platform, you're not gonna make it. Or well, I seem to not make it because of that. I'm not being able to put what I know fast enough onto the platform, when it comes to actual tests, So I thought it was going to be a good idea to do it. This would give me good practice, to do it before the exam. But now, when I actually did one, I noticed that if I wanted to do it again, I wasn't able, the access wasn't there, So that means I can only practice it 7 times, being that there are 7 mocks.
Yes, but if I'm talking out of experience, so I've been tutoring Cima for more than 12 years now. So with my
Mm,
experience, when you have access to 7 mock exams, when you have the opportunity of attempting each of the 7 mock exams over and over, that is enough
yeah.
practice. But if you really want, if you have some additional time, because my objective is to share the best approaches or the best strategies with you. So if I were
Okay.
you, I will be focusing on refining my answering technique, the quality of my answers. But if you really have time to reattempt mocks again under exam conditions, simply drop me a
Mm,
message via WhatsApp. I will ask our IT team to reset your exam platform once you're done with a certain mock exam. That can be done. That's easy. We can easily get it done if you are really asking for it. But my suggestion is to spend a considerable amount of time on revision, because you still have access to all 7 mock exams, which can be attempted under exam conditions via the exam platform, which is enough and more practice if you really think about it before you walk into the
yes.
exam. So if you really
Mm.
want, drop me a message via WhatsApp. I will take steps to reset each mock exam after you're done with it. Will it help?
Okay. Oh, no. Yes, it would help, but I
Okay.
think what you said earlier, I think I'll take you up on that as well to actually get on a call with you and actually explain my situation. Maybe you can actually direct me in the right path. I shouldn't have done it publicly. I think I should speak to you alone and get that in order on what is the precise way. I'll explain my situation and then you'll explain. But I'm a full member of TCS, and yeah, I'd just like to know the correct part. I'll message you privately.
Okay, sure.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else, folks? Any more questions? Did you guys understand how to deal with a question to do with linear programming? I'm pretty sure for most of you, it was the first time you went through such a question. Probably you might have not seen such a question previously. And this is an area in which most students struggle. Did you understand the logic behind it? Do you have any questions? Lian is saying, thank you for showing us a graph that didn't fit like the textbook versions do. Okay, you're welcome. You're welcome, Nora. Any questions, folks? All right, seems like there aren't any questions. So if you want to contact us, you can do it via our website, which is www.study@tcs.com. Visit our website and click on the contact button and drop us a message. Our admin staff will get in touch with you via email during office hours. And if you want to email us, you can do so via info@study@tcs.com. Or if you need instantaneous support, reach me via this WhatsApp number. And I urge you to follow us on our social media handles, especially YouTube and TikTok, because the recorded versions of the weekly webinars and workshops are uploaded to our YouTube handle. And via TikTok, you'd gain access to the video version of the pre-seen mind map, which consists of 6 different videos. So on your way to office, for instance, on a daily basis, keep watching these 6 TikToks so that you are constantly keeping yourself reminded of the most important points highlighted within your pre-scene. And you also have access to the PDF version of the same pre-scene mind map, which can be downloaded via our student dashboard by creating a free user account. So, and on top of that, if you are yet to read the blog post which we have created focused on SoPa, your company, you can read it by clicking in here. All right, so having said that, it brings us to the end of the webinar, which is conducted in lieu of the upcoming OCS exams. I hope you gained a good understanding of how to deal with your answering technique, how to manage your time, as well as how to implement these 2 techniques. And I hope you gained a good understanding of what you need to achieve in the upcoming 6 weeks to really excel in this exam. Do not wait until the last moment. Start your preparations right now, because you just have 6 weeks. Within 6 weeks, you have to master 7 mock exams in total, which is a bit tough if you really think about it. But it becomes tougher if you wait until the last moment to master the 7 mock exams. And if you are an individual who ended up failing previously, I hope you understood what you need to do to overcome your shortcomings, let go of your mistakes, and improve your performance focused on the upcoming exam. And if you have any questions or concerns, always drop me a message via WhatsApp. I'm always there to help you guys out. So thank you very much for joining. I hope you'd join me next Saturday when I'm teaching you stress management techniques. Thank you for joining. See you and take care.
Thank you.
You're welcome.